What happened back there?
I don't care.
Hey, I've got an idea. Let's rock talk.
Hello everyone, Lord Magic is here. Today we're going to talk about the anthologies and the One Ring and a little bit about why I'm stepping back for a bit. So, alright, let's try to keep this short and on point. So, Historic Anthology 7 just came out. We'll take a quick look through here. I think that the Historic Anthology 7 cards actually look like reasonable choices. They're at least all cards that at some point in their lives have seen play in other formats, so I'm not too upset about these. I will say I think these lands are a really powerful inclusion for Arena, so yeah, I'm not terribly upset about Anthology 7 for Historic. However, there's been some controversy over the the Explorer Anthology 3 on Arena because as you might remember, Explorer is supposed to be the bridge to Pioneer format, so the goal should be to get Pioneer on Arena as soon as possible. And if we look through some of these cards here, doesn't really seem like they're working that hard on doing that. A lot of these cards here are just not Pioneer cards. I'm sorry, they're just not. There's a handful of them that are important, but the majority of them are not. So just to take a look here, these are the most most played Pioneer cards that are not on Arena right now. And you can check this out at Fire Shoes. If you don't follow him, you probably should, as he posts a lot of very useful information all the time. He's a very pleasant person on Twitter, so yeah, I would definitely recommend follow. But yeah, if you can just see here, like, there's a lot of really important cards to Pioneer, like, Oath of Nisa is important to all of the the mono green devotion decks. Hidden Strings here, it's important to the Lotus Field decks. I think Chain to the Rocks of the red white aggro decks play that. And a couple other things like all the Delve cards. We have Treasure Cruise here. Yeah, Tassiger is on the list. Hooting Mandrels here. Dig Through Time. So there's a lot of really important Pioneer cards that just are not on Arena, and you could probably just take the top 25 or 50 cards in here in like one or two anthologies and get the majority of Pioneer on Arena. So if we actually look here, this out of all of those cards, this is what they chose here. So we just saw the top list here. They only picked 3 cards that actually break 100 or more copies being played amongst those 3,200 decks. So yeah, you can see they're not doing terribly well at focusing this list when literally half the list is not played in like any of those decks. Another like at least third of the list is barely played, and then you have like a handful of cards that actually are played in Pioneer. So yeah, a lot of people are upset that Wizards of the Coast is not fulfilling their promise to get Pioneer on Arena, and instead they seem to be trying to nickel and dime every single one of the main card additions that are necessary to do it. So yeah, I'm not terribly pleased with that, and probably shouldn't be either, because it's just more of the corporate greed seeping into the transition on Arena. It really makes you think that they don't want Pioneer there, and because they're not really trying very hard to do it. So alright, let's talk about the ring. The One Ring is like one of the most powerful artifacts that has ever been printed. Yeah, it's indestructible. When you cast it, you get protection from everything until your next turn, and you lose life during your upkeep for each burden counter on it, but you can tap it, add a burden counter, and draw a card for each one. So basically, you have like Necropotence stapled to a Time Walk, except it's actually kind of the reverse of Necropotence, because with that, you had to pay the life first, and you didn't get the card until later. Here, you get the cards first, and you don't have to pay the life until later, and there's a good chance you won't ever have to pay that life. So you staple that to a free turn where you get protection from everything. That's pretty powerful. So just to kind of give you an idea, again, Fire Shoes kindly provided this list here. the total quantity of card played in for each of these in the Midern Grand Open qualifier in Italy. Yeah, you can see the One Ring for this modern event is like already one of the most played cards in the format, and that's like right behind, Flooded Strand and Scalding Tarn and Mist. Yeah, so like ahead of it, we have two non-land cards. That's it, and two non-land cards and three fetches. So that's not a good sign to me. A lot of decks are still experimenting with it, and it's not clear how many are going to end up keeping it. But what is clear, though, is if we look at Modern, this format is very rapidly devolved into a ring, ring meta versus the anti-ring meta. So one of the reasons Rakdos here is doing so well, they are jamming copies of Orcish Bowmasters in here. So it's another Lord of the Rings card that is very powerful and is very good against the ring. Yeah, so it's when it enters the battlefield, and every time that the opponent draws a card, except for the first one they draw on their turn. So any extra cards they're drawing, essentially, um, deals 1 damage to any target, and then amass Orcs 1. So Bowmasters means that every time they tap the ring to draw cards, they're getting punished with life now, not later. So you can't avoid that, and you're getting value because you get to amass Orcs. Kind of the problem though with Bowmasters, it's a 1/1. It would actually probably be like less of a problem if it was a 1/2. The thing is, Bowmasters is one of the best answers to itself, because if your opponent plays one, you can just respond by playing your own and kill theirs. So Rakdos has been doing very well for that. You can see a lot of the decks that can't adapt the ring have been falling, and the decks that can either adapt Bowmasters or the ring are going up in value. So yeah, you can see here mono black control. This is a ramp deck that's playing Karn in the ring. Urzatron playing Karn in the ring. 4-color control gets to play the ring, and this is the other card I want to talk about, the Lighted Halfling, which is basically a Cavern of Souls mana dork for legendaries. And yeah, almost this entire deck is like legendary spells anyway. Like you look at Ren and 6 here, Teferi. They have this copy of Oath of Nisa, but also like Omnath and Elish Norn, and now they're adding in 4 copies of the One Ring. So all of these legendary spells get to be uncounterable, and they're ramped out, so they can curve out, Delighted Halfling and Teferi into the One Ring. It's a pretty hard curve to beat, and then they're gonna follow it up with like Omnaths or playing Solitudes and Furies and stuff while they're tapped out. So it's very hard, and there's not a lot of good punishment for it. So 4-color is doing very well. You can also see like the creature toolbox decks. They have Orcish Bowmasters in here. They're playing Delighted Halfling because it's just a really, really powerful ramp spell here. So it's good with Grist. They have Samwise in here. There's some version I think with Heliod that are playing with that card. But yeah, there's been kind of a resurgence of like those types of decks here. Shieldred's been seeing some play in it. Yeah, it's pretty powerful, and now they have a mana dork that makes their stuff uncounterable, so it's pretty good. And yeah, again, you can see like creativity has fallen because it doesn't really have a good way to adopt either the Bowmaster or the ring. So, and the halfling doesn't really help them. So yeah, even like Hammer Time is still on a downtrend from that. Breach is on the way up though, because Breach is in fact a ring deck that gets played with Teferi. This one, okay, so I picked the first one, but yeah, here we go. You can see it. So, the availability is still kind of spotty. The ring is fairly expensive. You can see it's 94 ticks, so a lot of the decks, if you have a lot of Mana Traders accounts, cannot like afford to have 4 copies of the ring in their deck because it just gets way too expensive. Like this is already like just under 800 ticks for this list, so yeah, it's up there, and yeah, they get to curve outs with Teferi to make all their stuff encounterable, but also Emery to help them recur the ring so they can just keep having protection every turn. So it's pretty awesome. And that's one of the reasons, I guess, that I'm not really interested in playing a lot of Magic right now. It's because I don't really enjoy this gameplay loop that we have going here. So, from my perspective, and maybe you agree with this and maybe you don't, but it really does feel like Wizards keeps putting profit over gameplay, and despite all the claims that Lord of the Rings was not going to be Modern Horizons 3, it feels like it's closer to that than not, because they just dumped a handful of staples that were just going to like destroy every format that they're legal in. Like Legacy also has very similar problems with the Ring being in all like the Mystic Forge decks and like Bowmasters, really punishing both the Ring and Brainstorm decks. And same thing in Vintage. Like the Ring is just absolutely ridiculous, and I think like a lot of the decks there are just playing it because it's stupidly powerful. I honestly think it's like one of the best artifacts they've ever printed, and it definitely I don't think it should have been printed in the first place, but we'll have to see whether it gets banned or not. The Pro Tour is coming up at the end of the month, so I believe they're going to use a lot of that data in order to decide whether they should ban this. And yeah, the banned and restricted announcement, since they changed their schedule and they're trying to do one big announcement every year, is about a week after the Pro Tour. So I think the number of copies of the Ring that are registered for the Pro Tour is probably going to have a significant impact in that, but I would not be surprised if they drag their feet on it the same way they did with like Hogak, where they just try to avoid having to ban the cards that they just printed because it's only been out for like a month and it's already like showing devastating results, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon. But I don't enjoy the gameplay with it, and I also, more than that though, I don't enjoy the way that Wizards keeps artificially rotating like Modern and Legacy. So it's pretty much ever since they had released War of the Spark and changed their design philosophy. Yeah, they've just been decimating these formats, and some people are all in about like Modern Horizons and the impact that has in these sets. I'm not really as pleased with that. I think that it has led to more problems than it has benefits. But it is clear from this behavior where they're just gonna keep doing it over and over again. Eldraine's coming out and like, what do you think the odds are that they're gonna print another Oko that's gonna be also like stupidly broken? So I don't know. Like it doesn't seem like this is a change in behavior that's going to go away. And when they're trying to, only have to ban cards once a year, it means that the problems are going to just remain longer. So I don't have a lot of faith that it's going to change. And again, Arena doesn't look like they're doing much better because they could have had Pioneer on Arena by now. Like, it would not have taken them that long. They've already done 3 Explorer anthologies, and it really does seem like if they had just picked like the top 75 cards for those 3 anthologies, we would probably have most of Pioneer there. But yeah, it's rough, and I'm not enjoying it, and I don't want to stream stuff if I'm not enjoying it because that doesn't make for good content. So in the meantime, I'm doing other stuff. Means that early next week I should be finishing up Final Fantasy V, and we'll do other stuff. Things that I actually do enjoy. I'm not gonna go away and like not do anything, but probably not gonna be streaming a whole lot of Magic for a while. Maybe they'll surprise me, on August 7th and decide that they're gonna Thanos snap away like a ton of these problem cards like Ren and Six, Ragavan, the Ring, whatever. I assume that it's not going to be all of them, but maybe 1 or 2 of them. I'm not sure if just 1 or 2 is going to be enough to fix all this stuff, but it would be at least a show of some faith if they could at least do the bare minimum. But I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, a lot of people going back and forth and whether they think that it's busted or not. Like, I'm kind of in the camp where I think if you don't believe that the Ring is ban worthy, then you're kind of high on cocaine. But that's my thoughts on it. So I'm just gonna try to do other stuff that I am having fun with instead of just dwelling on this because it's not sparking joy in me anymore. So it's time to take a break from this for a while. So I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on this. How do you feel about the Explorer anthology and Pioneer on Arena, and also let me know how do you feel about the state of like Modern and Legacy with the Lord of the Rings kind of ruling them right now. So I've got. So I will see you guys next time. Take it easy.
Yeah, that was good rock talk.